Hello, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. And today I have a new friend with me. And Joanne, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and what you love about what you do?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on today. I'm Joanne Cleaver, the real Mrs. Cleaver, and I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Editor at Investment News, which is the largest and most credible publication that covers the financial advisory and investing ecosystem. What do I love about what I do? It's basically my third grade teacher's nightmare. I get to ask questions and keep asking questions until I get answers that I think are credible and that I can bring to our readers and say, here's something that you didn't know about this industry. Here's why it's important to know it. And here's what you can do with it.
I love it. I love it. And we were just talking prior to the call about some of the articles that you're working on. And one that's near and dear to my heart is, the diversity in the financial industry. Obviously, it hasn't changed at all since I came in the industry over
Mm.
25 years.
Really? Not at all? Nothing?
Really, no.
Not significantly?
So
Hmm.
I am seeing more people of color, which is awesome.
Hmm.
Just not seeing the needle move on women. It feels like it's at the same number
Stuck.
or
Yeah.
percentage. It feels like we're stuck there, but I am starting to see. So an example where you are starting to see little minor inroads is I have a friend's daughter who was chosen for one of very few spots at JP Morgan for their
Mm.
internship program this summer. And I was just like, wow, that is fabulous. I felt like that was making inroads because usually that's very male dominated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Well, I've been covering these topics for over 25 years. I've been a business journalist for over 40 years. Between March 1980 and September 1981, I was at Northwestern getting a bachelor's, then a master's. But in that period of time, I got a bachelor's, a husband, a master's, and a baby. So I thought, I guess I'm going to freelance, and that was a little accelerated, but I just went ahead and had kids in the 1980s and started my career freelancing every week for Crane's Chicago business. And then just kind of bootstrapped myself up into national publications, started writing books by the end of the 80s. And then in the late 90s, started working for big national magazines, putting together special sections that measured and supported the advancement of women in the Fortune 500, and then took that to association work, to various associations that wanted to have this kind of research and insight. Essentially, the question these industries were asking is, why do women hate us so much? And I was like, well, let me tell you, sir. So the combination of data and then qualitative insight that not just says, hey, we're stuck at 25% women advisors or whatever the thing might be. The real question is why and what works to change that. So marrying the data with authoritative insight is to proven and promising practices that really change that and move things forward incrementally. That's the magic combination. And so that's what I'm bringing to investment news. I mean, a little surprised at this point in my career. I just turned 64 to have a full-time job in journalism, having had a really successful run as a freelancer. I have had two staff positions over the years, one at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and one as a content manager at Tribune Digital in Chicago. But I sold a chunk of my practice, that association research practice. I sold that back in January. And I guess just too much energy or not ADD, but, just too much energy, plenty of time, may as well just keep on working. And then this opportunity came up. They kind of came up with this unicorn job description. And then I was like, well, I'm overqualified for this. And they're like, what? So here we are. Um, yeah. So the issue of things being stuck, in my experience, which you now painfully know, in my experience, when an industry is stuck like that, there's typically a framing perspective of the current generation of leadership that looked at the entering class of employees, the interns, the first first young employees, and saw pretty good diversity, whether it was for gender or race or whatever it might be, and thought to themselves, we're good. We got them. Problem solved. They'll just stay in the pipeline. And, went back to their whatever the male version is of knitting and thought, problem solved. But the key issue is for this industry is both recruiting and retention, because the problem is that when people come in and they feel kind of alone and they realize that they're having to navigate all sorts of unarticulated cultural barriers, expectations, and all that, you feel isolated. You feel
Right,
like, am I doing it right? Am I, wait, I mean, I want to learn from people who really believe in me as a person, not just who believe in me as a demographic. And
right,
how do you find those people when you are realizing that your very identity, and you can't escape it? You're a woman, it's like, yeah, like, this is who I am. I'm a Black person, I'm a Hispanic, I'm Asian, I'm Native American, or some of the self-identified identities like being LGBTQ, or maybe a disability. You might be in a position to disclose that or not. So it's a complicated set of communication and self-disclosure barriers that can be discouraging right off the bat, and can complicate the normal process of just saying, hey, I need to be mentored, or I just need a peer group.
right.
um because nobody wants to feel like they're the only one. And so, yes, absolutely. Making a case to people in college, even people who are in high school, that this industry exists, that it's welcoming, that's a really, really good one for all the things that are important for most people these days coming out of COVID: autonomy, flexibility, sustainable high earnings, feeling that you're investing in other people on a daily basis. These are all qualities of this industry. They're so relevant, engaging, and just deeply meaningful
Yeah,
to most people. I'm not, I think that men generally want that sort of thing too, but historically, men have also measured their career success by winning, right? I was the only one who saw the 2007 housing crisis coming. I'm the only one who sold my house in December 2006 and captured all my equity. And I'm the only, all right, you're like, carry on, sir. Um, looking at quote unquote results just in terms of strict, very narrowly defined financial results, looking at
right.
you, Wall Street Journal editorial pages, that yes, ESG counts. And I think that women and younger generation investors and advisors and asset managers really genuinely do think more holistically. So take that holistic perspective and now put it onto the retention equation and say, okay, the pipeline doesn't solve itself just because you got this number of people in the door. Yes, we need to make the case that this industry exists, that this industry works on so many cylinders that are deeply important to you and for
Yeah,
your vision of holistic career success. But once you get in the door, how do we keep you? So it's my job in investment news to look at these complicated dynamics and to try to report them out in ways that are engaging and useful to the industry. So I say that my job has three levers: to inform, challenge, and celebrate.
very cool. I like that. I like that. And I think the challenge would be, at least for the way I think, with what I experienced, would be mentorship. That's how you're going to
Mm,
retain, if some of the diverse candidates have mentorship that will guide them through some of the tough times, and make them
mhm.
feel valued and make their voices heard a little bit more, and also help them, get a little bit further up the ladder.
Mm. Well, yes and no. So I have mixed feelings about mentorship. I've been hearing about mentorship for 30 years, and if it was that great of a silver bullet, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Yeah.
That's true.
So I would argue that it's not just the concept of mentorship, but it's having a structured, purposeful, measurable mentorship program, because mentorship means different things to different people. And it's also true that in a quantitatively dominated industry, as this has been
Mhm.
historically,
Yeah.
that a lot of leaders have defined their own success by quantitative results. And then they get to the top or close to the top, and all of a sudden, these additional leadership qualities of being a good mentor, being an executive sponsor, being able to invest in other people, feels to them like, I'm not saying this is true, I'm just saying this is how it often feels to them like an unfair, late in the game set of expectations that they were not prepared for. And if people are not rewarded, I always ask in interviews, like, people are like, we have this program, that program. I'm like, okay, great. Well done. You have a program. What are the specific rewards for managers and team leaders and senior leaders to show how they are contributing to these results? Because if people are not incented in their daily jobs and in their own performance reviews to help to do their part to help build those overall results, those results will not happen. People will always revert to the thing that is best for them. It is human nature. Look at your compensation and your compensation structure, your bonus structure, and how performance is defined. And if you are not asking and requiring people at all levels to invest in others in your organization, you will not have retention.
Yeah.
So you have to take that perspective, pour it into the mentorship structure so that you aren't just saying everyone's responsible for mentoring. And then some people who have gotten to a relatively high level have said, oh, not me though. Not me.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I got here on the basis of my quantitative results. Mentoring is awesome. Doesn't apply to me. I hope you all mentor somebody so that I have somebody to populate my awesome team in a year. Mm-mm. No, no, no,
No,
no, no, no,
doesn't
no.
work that
Just
way.
like every single leader is responsible for the operation and the P&L of their particular uh, line of, um, line of duty,
Yeah.
whatever they're responsible for their chain of command. You are also responsible for talent development and retention. And if your organization cannot drill it down to that level and then show how it's linked to compensation and performance reviews of managers, I don't believe you. I don't believe you're mentoring if you can't show me those things.
That
So
is
this,
gold.
unfortunately, is what the industry has to deal with here.
Yeah. Yeah. But that is absolute gold, because as you're saying this, I'm remembering I was at a different firm, and I knew how the managers were compensated, and it drove the activity
Mhm.
in the office for how they were compensated and how they
Sure.
treated, but it was negative, right? But it
Yeah.
only mattered that those managers made their bonus. It didn't matter if it was quality ideas or if it was the right thing or anything like that. So I didn't even think about that, but that's gold. Absolutely.
You're welcome. So, I have to say, I had a little bit of a jaded view when, we run at Investment News, we run these women advisor summits, and I love meeting people. I get to help run these things. Our events team is fantastic. The quality of speakers we get is great, but we had a session about mentorship for the Women Advisor Summit that just happened in Denver in early July. And, I had gotten to know the speakers a little bit in advance, and I thought, okay, what are they going to bring that's fresh? And I have to say, I learned stuff. So there are definitely things emerging in this industry. There are best practices that are relevant to today's workforces and today's workers and the current generation of leaders that we really want to retain and develop. So I kind of had to go back and rethink, my jaundiced view of mentorship, because I have seen so many programs, be announced, with hearts and flowers and little emojis, and I'm just like, okay, and there goes, another fail. And that's an unfortunate cycle, because, then within organizations, they're just like, well, that didn't work. Well, that version of it didn't work.
Right.
The
Yeah.
concept of investing in other people will always work. You just have to keep, turning the Rubik's Cube until you find that the right alignment of the practice and the results within the culture of your organization that can really take root and flourish. And it feels very daunting. So those of you who are listening who are saying, yeah, good for you, Joanne Cleaver, sitting there at Investment News, getting to ask the tough questions, write your little stories, and tell the rest of us how to live our lives. Here's a way to approach it that I know has worked at one of the top accounting firms. Don't try to do the whole thing at once. Your ultimate goal is culture change, for people to think differently about mentoring, executive sponsorship, how they invest in women and other diverse talent. Set up a pilot. Do it one team at a time. Set up a pilot and require on that team that they have that no single identity is the majority.
Right.
Require it. And then have as an explicit outcome, I'm sorry, an explicit dynamic of that team to talk about their dynamic. How do I feel as a woman trying to assert my voice on this team? How do I, as an Asian woman, feel that I'm being heard and respected? How do I, as a white man who's a first generation college graduate in my family, how do what do I find myself holding back? And challenge that team to talk about the way that they're getting their work done as a diverse team. That pilot will inform a lot of your programs And if you do it at that small level and you work out some of the kinks and you figure out, okay, this is how peer mentoring, or how we approach sprints, or whatever the issue might be, do it with a deliberately diverse perspective. And then once you kind of get the kinks out for one team and they've got kind of a playbook, have another team in a different office or a different practice area try the same thing. So basically, think of it like a dandelion. The good part of dandelions is that once you get a dandelion that's determined to take over your lawn is going to be all dandelions. So think about dandelions and you say, just need takes one dandelion and you just have a seed here and a seed here. And all of a sudden, that team in each of you've got somebody doing things a little bit differently in each of your offices. And then they're starting to share with other people. Then those teams interact with other teams, and they start to apply these new um, ways of talking and approaching and being open about making sure the communication is happening, and being open about overcoming their own hesitancy or being respectful of others, and being more assertive on their own. And they change the dynamics of the teams that they interact with. And that's how you enact culture change. So yeah, it's top down in the sense that somebody has to get incented to take on that challenge. But the real change happens bottom up.
Yeah. Wow. Very brilliant.
You're welcome. And you know what? I love tactics and approaches that do not require permission or budget, because all of us can do something different to change the culture at our organizations and help us get closer to whatever we think the organization needs to achieve, whether it's better retention or treating women better, being more respectful of LGBTQ
Right.
individuals, or whatever it might be. And so things that I always have like a little side list of no permission, no budget things that you can do. So here's one that we just learned for our newsroom that I just finished a piece this morning about how we approach controversial societal issues like Roe versus Wade, and how we're not going to cover the hard news of that, right? I mean, that's nobody goes to investment news to say, what did the Supreme Court do today on abortion rights? Nobody's looking to us to do that, and we're not qualified. Like, we're not Supreme Court reporters.
Right.
But what is the intersection of Roe v. Wade with the daily operations of investment advisory firms, investment advisors, and asset managers, and the whole infrastructure? Well, is it practice management? Is it a leadership communication challenge? Is it client, working with clients who might suddenly show up and say, this is the hill I die on. My entire portfolio is going to be organized around, companies that supported, or, that are pro-life or pro-choice, or whatever their filter might be. So there is an intersection. So how do we talk about that in our news process so that we're better equipped to go out there and report on it more thoughtfully? One change: we quit talking about this issue and other polarizing issues in terms of two sides. We thought, because all sorts of research, Gallup, Pew Research, indicates that on abortion and on other topics too, most Americans occupy an uncomfortable middle ground. They're saying, I'm generally not for unfettered gun rights, and I feel really uncomfortable with assault weapons being available to anybody who can just fill out a piece of paper and buy one at a gun show. But I also don't want to negate the Second Amendment. Most people have a more nuanced view than the media tends to cover things, because it's easy to get advocates to talk about one extreme or the other, because again, how are they incented? It is their job to make those cases. They return our calls. It's easy to get them on the record. It is literally their job to spout off about this stuff, and they don't represent either side. So how do we as journalists become more thoughtful in how we cover and approach all of these controversial issues? One simple change: stop talking about both sides and talk about several perspectives. That's it. And if we do that consistently, think about, I mean, if the entire profession did it, think about how the coverage would change instead of this side versus that side. If we did, if we we're more thoughtful, more consistent, and more respectful of our readers, to find several perspectives instead of just A versus B. No budget,
Yep.
no permission, just
Yeah.
that one change would really reframe the coverage. So I can't do that across all of journalism, but I can advocate for that change within the investment news newsroom.
Oh, love it. Love it. More reasons to follow you and investment news.
That's right. awesome just like this, and to come to our great events and, meet super smart women who surprise old jaded people like me. And it's like, I thought I knew it all about mentoring and I was wrong. That's the cool thing about this job, is that you have to bring humility to it every day, because if you don't expect to get surprised, then you won't be surprised, and then basically you just disqualified yourself from being a journalist. You should
Right.
always look for the thing that you think you already know, and look for new perspectives on that, because the
Yeah.
world's always changing and there are new solutions, but there are also new problems, but we have new tools as well. So it's been a
So
joy to be a business journalist from 1981 on, and I'm so grateful for Crane's Chicago Business back then giving me a chance. And one of the reasons why I was so happy to join Investment News is that it was founded by Crane Communications. And so the DNA of Investment News is something that, I really understand. And I just can't believe my good fortune to be able to have, as a stretch towards the end of my career, working with this wonderful newsroom, with this, the thoughtful leaders that we have, and working, to help inform, enlighten, and celebrate and challenge, this incredibly important industry that helps define financial success for all Americans, whether they know it or not.
very true. And it sounds like it's obviously a passion for you and almost a mission for you. So I applaud you for all of that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if people wanted to follow you, they would go to Investment News online
Yeah.
to follow you. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I really am not a fan of Twitter. So just following investment news, we're always posting about our latest stories. We do have an investment news women's newsletter that aggregates the most popular stories, or what we think are the most important stories as well. On topics especially relevant to women. I think it's quarterly. I mean, I've only had this job since April 4th, so I'm still figuring stuff out. So we've produced it once, so it must be
Okay.
quarterly. And we're going to be redoing our newsletters, and hopefully getting some fresh content that's unique to each newsletter in the future, but it won't happen right away. And our nominations are open right now for our Women to Watch Awards. We've retooled those. So, for example, we have a whole category now for allyship, and celebrating people who are allies in any direction. An intern can be an ally to somebody else. Somebody outside the industry can be an ally for somebody inside the industry, or vice versa, through
Right.
strategic volunteer work. So really trying to thoughtfully reframe what we call out and celebrate, because that is what in our system gets rewarded, right?
Right.
That's the compensation, that's what gets rewarded. So we're trying to be really thoughtful about what we recognize as excellence, and then perpetuate that deliberately.
Yeah. I think I recently received an email regarding,
I'm sure you did.
yeah. Yeah. I was looking for it.
We're really good at sending out emails.
Well, no, I actually
We're
read it
awesome at
too,
that.
which is even
Oh,
better.
well, thank you. You're the one. We saw that open. We saw that you
As
set
you
our
know,
open rate all by yourself.
yeah, we get like 100 to 200 emails a day. So I'm like, oh
Oh,
God.
yeah. Oh, totally.
Which should
Oh,
I read?
no.
Which one should
Oh,
I? But yeah, I read
I
that.
literally have like 3,000 unopened emails in I have one email address that's just like for signing up for, news releases and all that stuff. And I've got like 3,000 unopened emails. So sorry, PR people.
It
I
happens.
do actually go through and sort things out, but
It's all good.
it's a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
of information that we manage, and that's the value that we bring to our readers, is to be able to sharpen and hone the most relevant and issues to their lives, to their practices, to their own career goals, and to how to do right by their clients, and then hopefully bring additional perspective and context.
Yeah. 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 And obviously, you still have a lot of work to do. However, at some point, you may think about retirement. And what would your
Maybe.
vision of retirement be?
Well, I have actually thought about that a lot, because of having covered retirement and personal finance for a really long time. I'm a quilter, lifelong quilter. I started when I was 14 and I'm now 64. And I am pretty sure that I will not outlive my fabric. So my family takes a very dim view of the longevity plan of my quilt stash. So I guess my basic retirement goal is to try to sew down my stash. um, but of course, my husband and I are excited about traveling. He's finally exiting. He sold a manufacturing company that he started 20 years ago. So he's finally exiting that. And
Oh,
we're super
congratulations.
relieved and happy about that. Yeah. So we've got 5 grandkids, and we spend a lot of time with them.
Mhm.
So our retirement plan is to, I will probably work as a journalist as long as I can, because having freelanced for so long, um, if when the day comes when I'm no longer with
Yeah.
investment news, which hopefully won't be soon, but when that day comes, I will be able to return to freelancing. And I do some travel writing. I've written 3 travel books in the distant past. I still keep that alive. I'm a member of the Society of American Travel Writers, which is really hard to get into, but maybe not if they let me in. And so keeping that alive on the side, just to keep that membership active.
Yeah.
And so I have every confidence that I'll be able to continue with that, and then, pick up some stories for ongoing, or maybe organizations and publications that don't exist yet. Um, and hopefully I'd like to, continue with covering women's issues. It would be nice to have the luxury to do some longer, more in-depth stories where there's a lot of waste in the process, and most employers take a dim view of waste.
Yeah.
So we try to be very efficient at investment news, and not waste anybody's time, including ours. It would be a luxury to have a few assignments that accommodated some waste, that let me chase down some promising leads, even knowing that some of them wouldn't work out. So I should probably get better at like applying for grants and stuff like that. I mean, I don't have time right now, but I would like to figure that out so that I can maybe get some bigger think pieces in, teed up. I'm really curious about caregiving. I'm in charge of my 88 and 3/4 years old mom's care.
Oh, wow.
And it's really shown me, I knew theoretically about the conflicts for women and like their own lifelong economic independence and the lifelong conflicts with caregiving,
Right.
and how that so much of our career, and life expectancy, um, not life expectancy in terms of how long we live, but our expectations for quality of life, how much of that is in direct conflict with the societal expectations that women face for caregiving. And I just think that there's a lot of good journalism to be done on that front. It's outside the scope of what we do at Investment News largely, but I would like to pick that up at some point. So
That's exciting. Well, yeah, I will continue. You have a lot. I can't imagine you just stepping out and that's it. Like you just have so much more to give. So
yeah, why? As long as I've got
yeah.
a keyboard and a brain,
Yeah,
and
that's the
and
great
I
thing
guess,
about people's retirement vision. It can be what you want, what you think is going to work for you,
yeah,
not the old traditional style of retirement. That's why I asked the question. Everyone
right.
has something a little different. I
Mhm.
love it. I love it.
And
Well,
probably nobody says that my goal is to, get skin cancer by a pool in Florida.
no, no, absolutely not. But thank you so much for joining me. You are a wonderful, wonderful talent, and I cannot wait to keep following you on investment news. So thank you so much
Well,
for.
you've been so kind to have me. Thank you very, very much. And anybody who ends up listening to this, hello, and drop into my inbox if I see that you're a real person. I swear I'll open your email.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank everyone else for joining us as well. Again, I'm Regina McCann Hess, president of Forge Wealth, and my website is forgewealth.com. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Forge Wealth. LinkedIn, I'm Regina McCann Hess. And go think about your retirement vision. It's a good day for it. Thank you.